Hey guys, what's up? It's Dark Nerd Cosplay, and I've been trying to post lately, but this is my first Get Ready With Me in a long time, so there's a lot to be updated. For the main subject of this one, we're gonna talk about my journey dropping out of med school and becoming a film student. But before we do that, I already got my contacts in. We're getting ready to do a Makise Kurisu cosplay. I haven't seen me do it a million times already. I'm gonna do a little summer themed one, so it'll be fun. Yeah, let's just get right into the story. I'm gonna look like a rat this whole time because I'll have my wig cap on, but that's fine. Obviously, we have to go back to my roots. Since I was little, I've always wanted to do a science career. I switched around a lot, but science was just always a thing. It was always my hyperfixation. It started with like astronomy, developed into chemistry, meteorology for a bit too. It was a few different things, but ultimately, around maybe 10th grade, it settled on biology. I was never really good at biology in school, but eventually through watching TV and everything else, I was like, okay, I really love crime shows. I really love solving mysteries. I want to be a forensic pathologist. And for those that don't know, forensic pathology is basically those people like that look at the dead bodies and determine the cause of death and whatever, and they can help contribute to the investigation of a murder or whatever the crime was. I settled on that. I was like, I've been watching crime shows forever. I love this stuff, not just because it's like cool on TV. I love biology. I love that shit. So I was like, that's my thing. And what's funny is I loved films since I was little, but not like movies and stuff. I loved making my own stuff, so I never really thought of it as a love of film. I just thought of it as a love of creating. Apparently, I just saw on I was going through like old documents on my Google thing, and I like wrote a letter to my future self where I was like, yeah, so at this point you're either thinking you want to go into biology or being a film director. I was like, what? I don't remember myself thinking that, but apparently I did. I was kind of on the trail of thinking like, do I like biology or do I like the TV shows I see biology in? I was still set on biology. Yeah, that was basically it. I got in the grind. I was like, I've always been an A+ student. I've always been a gifted kid. So I was like, I'm just gonna keep working the way I'm working and, you know, set my goals. I started doing research into schools. At first I was big. I was like Ivy League, Harvard. I even wanted to go to the UK for some of their schools because they had some great science schools. I started doing research, and then I believe it was towards the middle of my junior year that I was offered an opportunity at an internship because my grades were so good. They were like the top, whatever, 20 kids, 20 students can look into the area, find a place that they want to intern, and work there for either the summer or you could do it during your school year. I opted for summer because I didn't want to miss school. So that summer, I couldn't find forensic pathology, like a mortuary to work in, because there was a lot of like complications legally with that I don't know what they were, but it makes sense. A student can't just look at dead bodies all day. But they opted to put me in a normal pathology lab, which the difference is it's not dead. Well, I guess the body parts are dead, but the people aren't dead that they come from. So I did a pathology lab in the neighboring city, which wasn't that far. Basically, a normal pathology lab is the same idea. You're getting organic stuff from people to determine illness rather than death. Biggest example is getting something taken out to see if it has cancer cells, but there's many different things they do besides that. So I did it, and it was like the best experience I've ever had. I loved it. Oh my god, did I love it. It was so cool. Unfortunately, because my area is small, there wasn't like a ton of work. The doctor that I was interning under would work between different hospitals because of how small our area it was. He did it one place all the time, so that's why it was kind of slow. And the bigger stuff would be sent out to universities and hospitals, you know, hours away. So that was the only downfall. But it was enough for me to be entertained. And when I wasn't doing like the big stuff, the nurse or like assistant that I was under was super cool, and she would help me, like she would just like hang out with me and I would help her like organize stuff, like the more boring stuff at the job, but like I love organization, I love that stuff, so it was nothing to me. Like I loved it. I totally skipped over the fun stuff, not the boring stuff, but so the fun stuff is we'd get specimens in from these bodies. And gore warning, by the way, I'll try not to be like super detailed, but we'd get specimens in from people, whether it be bones, tissues, like entire organs sometimes if people got them taken out, and we would look into them. Now obviously I couldn't like do it myself, but I would be able to watch, and sometimes if the doctor like was just like, alright, finish this up while I go, the assistant would be super fun and she'd let me like touch stuff. So one time I picked up an entire uterus. Those things are heavy. They're heavy. But you know, it was still super cool. We took pictures of it, like not on my iPhone, but like the hospital camera for like evidence. We were taking pictures of it. It was really fun. And there were some sad moments where, you know, like we'd get a fetus or something like that, but overall it was just too exciting not to like, you know, like that maybe I'm a terrible person, but it was wicked fun. And I still tell those stories like to this day to anyone I meet. I'm like, yeah, I was in a pathology lab and here's all the organs that I saw and ordered and how bloody they were on a scale of 1 to 10 and blah blah blah. Great conversation starter. I finished up with that and I was like, this was awesome. If this is how fun pathology is, forensic pathology is going to be 10 times better. So I was ready. I picked out a college, University of Rochester, which wasn't too far from me, a few hours, and had one of the best like biology programs in my area, and I think in the country. I don't know where they rank, but they have a really good hospital that like, I remember while doing the internship, we would be sending specimen to them. So I'm like, oh yeah, if they're getting the stuff that we can't work with, then they must be good. Then, as we all know, COVID hit. I finished up my senior year in quarantine, but I was like, oh, I can't wait to just go to college. As long as they let me on campus, it can't go wrong. And luckily by then, we could. Obviously masks mandated and everything else, but we were allowed on campus. I go on campus, I do all the testing, like COVID testing all the time, which understandable, it's fine. My roommate opted not to come because she was from a long ways away and she didn't want to move all the way there if COVID was still bad and have something happen, so understandable. So I got a two bedroom, two people room to myself. A lot of fun those first few days. I've always been an independent person, so I loved just walking around the campus, exploring by myself, all that stuff, decorating my room. I had a lot of fun exploring myself. I was like, I'm away from my small little town. I'm less scared to dress how I want to dress and act how I want to act. So I wore some really cute outfits the first few weeks, and I had some really awesome friends when I did eventually meet them. Yeah, it was pretty fun, but as all stories end these days, COVID, none of the regulations on campus changed per se, but when winter hit, it really got to me. I couldn't go, well, when fall hit, because it's cold, but I couldn't go outside anymore as often as I wanted. They wouldn't let us have friends in our rooms, so like, we could only hang out certain areas, and it was just easier for us to hang out outside. So now that we couldn't, we weren't seeing each other as often or doing as much. I mean, we tried, we made the most of it, we broke the rules where we could. Don't tell anyone that. It was hard for me, and on top of that, my classes were hard. I think everyone goes through that. That wasn't an explicitly me or an explicitly COVID thing. Just the combination of events was hard for me. The fact that I was having trouble in classes, I couldn't get out of my room often enough to, you know, get help or feel healthy. And I was just watching a TikTok actually that said, like, when you live in a dorm, do your homework outside of your dorm, because if you don't establish that difference, you're not gonna feel productive in your room, you're not gonna feel calm in your room, you're gonna be stressed out because that's where you do your work, you know? So that was my problem, is I really didn't establish a difference between work and home. And so I was just always stressed out. And I was, like I said, struggling in my classes. I probably would have been fine if I stuck it out, but yeah, just the combination of everything made me realize, like, I am miserable here. I'm only hanging on because of my friends, but I just can't do it. And I tell people often that I'm thankful for COVID because of that, which is a ridiculous thing to say, but because I know my personality. If I didn't have the restrictions I did, if my classes weren't online, which I forgot to mention, but we all assume, if my classes weren't online, if it all wasn't so independent and just like responsibility thrust on me, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot longer than I did. I probably would have went to my classes, I would have hung out with my friends in the quad, you know, I would have I just would have been enjoying myself so much that I didn't realize that wasn't what I wanted to do. Yes, I didn't like biology. I liked it in high school because I had the greatest teachers ever teaching me. And it was a high school curriculum, not a college curriculum. And the difference being college is a lot more independent. You have to work a lot harder. You have to do a lot of your own research and a lot of your own, you know, they're not going to say like, homework's due on Monday, write it in your planner. Like, they're not going to do that for you. And if you love what you're doing, that's great. You're not going to care. But if you are kind of miserable and don't really want to do the work to begin with, then it's going to be a lot harder to motivate yourself. So yeah, that was the first thing, is I just wasn't motivated to be working harder than I was, which was the bare minimum. And even when I did apply myself, those, like, every now and then I'd be like, I just need to get this over with. I just need to try and prove to myself I can do it. Even then, I would be getting, like, bad grades. And I was like, if I'm doing my best and getting the worst, then what's the point, you know? I was just in a really low place. But yeah, I think it was really the crime shows and that stuff that convinced me that I would love it. Whenever people asked me, like, is it gonna be like TV? Is it gonna be like TV? I'd be like, well, no, it'll be a little slower than TV, but it's the same idea. And I was really convincing myself that I would have that fast-paced life, that fun criminology, you know, whatever, that, like, it would all be worth it. But eventually, after everything that happened, I was like, I can't do it. I can't do this for 8 years plus. It was gonna be about 12 years after you do, like, all the specified training afterwards and everything else. I was like, I can't do this. If I'm this miserable now, and I'm not even doing, like, my focused field yet, I mean, maybe it would have gotten better when I was more specific to my field, but I knew it wasn't for me. And so about, like, maybe a month or so before I was leaving campus for the first semester, I was like, I need to figure out what I'm doing. So I kind of started talking to my friends, and I'm like, I don't know, should I come back next semester? Like, why spend the money if I don't know what I'm doing? And it's COVID, so I'm not even getting the full education out of this anyway. Why would I waste my money? So they were reluctant to see me leave, but they understood where I was coming from. And I still stay in touch with maybe one of them, the most important one. It's fine. The other ones be straight. Like, yeah. So they understood. So, and my parents understood as well. They knew where I was coming from. They knew from the moment I was born, I was a creative spirit, and as smart as I was, that wasn't where my brain wanted to be. You know, I had too much creative energy to be in a science field. I guess I wouldn't be satisfied. So they understood. So I got home for Christmas break and we kind of discussed it. We're like, well, what are we gonna do? And I was like, well, the only thing that I know I love to do is cosplay, but that is not something I am at the level of yet to make a career out of. I mean, I certainly could break my back and try, but I know realistically I'm not where I am to make enough money. And I know they would support me even if I wasn't, but I needed to be realistic. And so I was like, all right, well, what's the next thing? I know I can't do music. I did music all throughout high school, but again, not a thing I can make a career out of. I wasn't good enough to be a Broadway or a singer or a musician, and I didn't want to be a teacher or something, one of those other careers. So then I was like, well, I mean, there's film. And it was always something underlying that I would ignore, because I was like, that's not a safe career to fall back on. Like, that's same with the music thing, same with the cosplay thing. Like, it's just not safe. I don't know, I just was so convinced that I wanted to do something creative that I was like, it might just be my only hope. I can at the very least get a small position on some sets and make some money while I am doing the other hobbies I want to do, like cosplay and stuff. So my mom was like, we knew you were going that way anyway. Here's some schools that we've looked at. And luckily my brother, he had already went to a creative school. He went for like sports, like management stuff, but it was a creative school. It was like a creative trade school. yeah, he went to Full Sail University, and I had like briefly toured the school with him while he was here because we just came down to visit him in like 2017 or whatever. I had already known what I was getting into if I did apply. The programs here are short. They are a little pricey at first glance, but if you consider the fact that you're paying that price for 20 months rather than 4 years of college, it's a good deal. And I say that because I'm paying about the same price for said 20 months that I would have been at University of Rochester for 4 years, as in that price every year for four years. Did I get that right? Yeah, so it was absolutely worth it in that regard. Like I said, it was 20 months, so it wasn't a long time for me to be committing in case I didn't like it. The only thing was it was in Florida. It is in Florida. And I hadn't gone more than 3 hours from my house until then. And I knew I was independent enough and ready to do that, but I didn't know if my parents were, to be quite frank. But my mom saw how miserable I was at Rochester, and she was like, it's gonna be tough for all of us, but you need to do it. Otherwise, you're just gonna sit in this house for the rest of your life and have some cats and mooch off of us until we die. I was like, you're right. You're right. I looked into some other schools just to be safe, but I was like, this is the best deal I have within the time I have. I mean, I wasn't gonna go immediately, but I was like, it's COVID, I don't have time to go tour new schools and figure out what I'm doing. And the nicest thing about it that I had that kind of like was the deciding factor was they had a lot of different programs for a lot of different stuff, but they were pretty general at the same time. But what I mean by that is that if you did, for example, my program, film, you wouldn't just be learning how to direct or just be learning how to do camera. You learn everything in the industry. So if you aren't sure which aspect you want to do, you can decide. So that was really it for me, because I was like, I still want to do cosplay, so that puts me on the creative side of film. But at the same time, I've always loved camera angles. I've loved telling the story. Not necessarily like directing per se. I was thinking more DP, as in cinematographer. The biggest thing besides the cosplay that I loved about film was stuff like Edgar Wright, for example, who really connects his camera movements to the music. The choreographing of that was like my favorite thing of films. So I was like, that's what I want to do. 100%. So I didn't know from an amateur's point of view if that was director of photography, if that was just the camera operator in general, or the director, or would it be more an editing thing? I don't know. So the fact that the school taught me everything was like, yeah, that's perfect. I'll learn everything I need to make my own cosplay videos, and I'll get the education I need to figure out what part of the film industry I want to specialize in, really. So yeah. By the time I kind of figured all this out, like I said, my program's a little weird. It's month to month. So hypothetically, I could have joined it any month I wanted to. But I was like, I'm gonna give myself a little time off, see if COVID gets better, because the last thing I wanna do is move to Florida and then take online classes again. Done with that. Don't wanna do it. Especially because film's hands-on. Biology I could get away with, but film is hands-on. I wasn't gonna learn anything online. So I took like a semester off and decided I would join the program in August, when most of the high school kids would be joining anyway. Until then, I tried to focus on cosplay stuff a little bit, and I also just did odd jobs to keep up while I was living at home. I was just doing like babysitting, mascotting, the like, because it was hard to get a real job during COVID. I tried to work on cosplay while I was home. I did as much TikToks and stuff as I could. I was just as depressed at home. I mean, I wasn't as depressed because I could actually go out and do stuff to the extent of COVID, and I was around friends, so it was better. But it was still like, okay, I'm at home every day. I'm just gonna play video games and not be productive. I've got to stop being hard on myself. I have that mentality of if I'm not doing the very most I can do, then I'm not doing anything. So even if I like cosplay and post TikToks and post videos, I'm like, no, that wasn't enough. Like, you have to be famous by now. You have to be uploading every day. You have to be doing all this. Like, I have that problem, but that's besides the point. I have that TikTok audio. It's so relevant. I have that TikTok audio that's in my head. It's like Smallest Violin by AJR, but it's specifically the part where it's like something, and then I'll blow up, and it just stops because people use it when they blow up on TikTok. I have that just like in my head. So even though I didn't do as much as I would have liked to do while I was home, I was productive, and I'm proud of myself for that. And mostly I did a lot of research on, the school I was going to, film, as well as what I could do with that and cosplay. Because my ultimate goal in life and as a career is to incorporate cosplay and film. I want to make content that people can say, wow, this is much better than the Marvel films. And I don't mean that quality-wise, because I'll never get there, but I want to make content that nerds can say like, oh, you were more consistent with the original work, and I can relate to these characters better because of that. That's the kind of content I want to make. Because a lot of times I will watch Marvel films, and best example I can think of at the moment is Loki. Loki, they make him this mischievous whatever that he is in the comics, that works. And in the series, without spoiling anything, they do hint at him being bisexual, but that's the closest they get. Instead of, the actual representation that we get in the comics with him being pansexual, I think. That would be the correct term, pansexual, and gender fluid, which we see because he switches between genders and beings in general. So that kind of stuff, just as an example, is the stuff I want to represent. Whether it be in just little music videos or short films or skits or whatever, I want that kind of stuff made so that people can be excited about seeing their favorite characters on screen without them being ruined, without their personalities and their appearances being ruined. And that's not to say that Marvel, or anyone else for that matter, ruins the characters. They just Hollywoodize them, and they make them, more appealing to the average person, which is their job. I mean, you can only be so mad. I'd rather make content appealing to a small audience that can appreciate it at a more personal level than I would like to make big content that, everyone can enjoy at a basic level, if that makes any sense. Anyways, tangent aside, that was kind of my goal, and that was the research I was doing, and that was the plans I was making for when I got down to Florida in Full Sail. And so I moved down here. If you couldn't tell, I've been talking in that sense because yes, I live in Florida, and yes, I go to Full Sail. I am clearly in a different place than my last video. Not that I upload often enough for you to know that, but down here, I have a nerdy little roommate that I live with. Her house is amazing, by the way. Should I do a tour at some point? I have brief posts of it on my personal TikTok and that, but not much. So if you guys want to see it, let me know. Apologies, I have to look in this mirror to see what I'm doing because I can't see far away. But yeah, we moved out here in a kind of skanky apartment, but you know what? It works. I started attending Full Sail. Shameless promotion. Go to Full Sail if you want. There's my convincing argument. Go to Full Sail if you want. But I started a program, and I think I mentioned before, it's a little unconventional. It is month by month. We have 1 or 2, up to 3 if they're not that busy, classes a month. So we get it done really fast, and that way if you don't like it, it's over fast. They range in subject of, film stuff. We have a few general eds, but they are catered to art. So my history class was art history. My math was kind of general, but my physics class was physics of movies. So it's pretty cool how they get around that. But yeah, so the curriculum's pretty cool. And then the rest of it is all variation of film. They kind of switch back and forth between busy months and not busy months. So we'll have a lot of labs one month, and then the next month, we have some chill lectures, and it's cool.
So far, my favorite classes have been my project and portfolio classes, which is basically what the school does is help us build our own resume while we're at the school. So every few months we'll have a project and portfolio where we will do some projects, start to finish. Obviously, each one gets more tense going on. So like the first one was simple, just on your phone, whatever. But we do that, and then that way we will have a portfolio of stuff we've done by the end. And we could say, like, I've directed my own film, or I did camera on this big project at school, or whatever. So that's pretty cool. Eyeliner. Oh, I'm out of wipes. I have wipes. These ones are dried up, but they will work. Yeah, I've been really enjoying them. I get a chance to work on some stuff with some people. I get a chance to make my own stuff, which I'm not that great at. If there's one thing I'm not, that I've learned I'm not, it's a writer. I'm bad at writing scripts. Super bad at that. Aside from that, I've learned just about every other skill, and I've been really enjoying it. And I've liked making my own stuff, even if I don't really like the subject that I wrote, the script. I've been enjoying it, and I've been enjoying working on other people's stuff even more, because they are actually really good at writing. And even when I'm not in school, I still help people with personal projects, which is also really cool. The biggest thing at our school, like, every other school has a saying. We probably have one, but the one that I would actually say is ours is networking, network. So basically talk to people all the freaking time with their Instagrams and their phone numbers, and just be like, hey, I'm gonna annoy you to death until you give me a job. That's basically what it is. But yeah, so I've networked with my fellow students, and they've asked me on some of their sets for personal projects, or they knew people working on stuff, people that have already like graduated. So that's been pretty fun working on stuff outside of school. And the best part is knowing that I have friends that can help me when I eventually want to make bigger productions again, like Echo, which I'd like to say I'm working on one, but I've kind of hit some writer's block on it. But yeah, it's been really fun. We have labs where we like learn how to work with cameras and audio and everything in between. Classes to learn how to script write, and even though I took it, I still sucked. Learned how to edit. Yeah, it's been really fun. And like, I tell people anytime that I see them and they're like, hey, how's it going? Like, how are you loving film school? I'm like, even the boring assignments that I get online, like the really dumb ones that they just have to hand out to have some extra grades in the book, those are still better than anything I did at Rochester. And not against the school again, I'm just saying it for the sake of, but I enjoy those far more. I know I'm in the right place, because even the most like torturous work, even the most stupidest stuff, I still want to do. And obviously I'm like, I'll have days where I'm like, oh, I just don't want to do homework today, like any person, but I still want to do good at this school, and I'm not giving up for any reasons or anything. Like, I don't get discouraged. I love what I'm doing. Just point blank simple. I love what I'm doing here. So that's how I know. That's how I know I found the right place. And I hope that everyone feels that way about their school. Like, it gets tough sometimes, and sometimes you're uncertain, sometimes you're just tired, but you should love what you're doing. You should like what you don't like doing. Does that make sense? That makes sense. Love the stuff that's the greatest, and like the stuff that's not the greatest. I think that got worse. I'm not good at metaphors. But basically, yeah, that's kind of my point. Because even the worst days are better than the best days at Rochester. That's not true. I loved people there. The worst days here are better than, you know, some of the funnest times. But yeah, I've done a lot of like short projects and stuff on here, and I'm curious if people would want to see them. I don't think they're mediocre. They're not super great. They've been like, a lot of them were like specific prompts, like no dialogue, or like centered around an object, or like random stuff like that. So they're not like super interesting, and like I said, I'm not the greatest at script writing, but they're all currently unlisted on my YouTube so that my professors could get the link. So if anyone wants me to make them public, let me know if I have a thing people want to see. But if not, I don't care, because I don't think they're my best work, but I don't think they're my worst work either. I shouldn't have done this off camera, but that's fine. I usually like using this color for any cosplay. It's just like a super neutral tone. but it's also matte, so it doesn't like get messy afterwards. Yeah, I'll just put it as a base, and then if I want to put some eyeshadow over it, I will. I feel like it looks too... It needs to be like brighter. I don't know what to do about that. I did good at not ending like super early today. With the story, that is. But I still ended early. So now what do I talk about? Maybe add some gloss to it. I don't know what it is, but this stuff tastes good.
Unequivocally fucking busted.
Not that I would know, I shouldn't be tasting makeup. I'm almost done. So I'll just wrap this up and I'll say, moral of the story is do what you want to do. And don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. It's literally it. Like, oh my god, how many times have my friends said, like, and I get where they're coming from. They'll be like, I don't think I like what I'm doing, but like, my parents like it. It's like, fuck your parents. I get they are supporting you financially, but it doesn't hurt to talk to them and say, hey, parental units, I know I was convinced I wanted to do this in college, but I don't anymore. And they might say, it's too bad. But they might also say, well, what do you want to do? Like, in the end, think about it. It's your life, not theirs. If you're stuck in an office every day of your life, they're not gonna have to endure that. You are. So why would you? Like, I just don't understand that. And I feel bad for people with parents that don't care about your say. Because it's just not their life. And I don't want to sound like the, I want a piercing, it's not your life, mom, like that person, but like, with a career, it's literally not their life. They're gonna die, and you're still gonna be stuck in this fucking job, because you can't afford to go back to college and get the degree you want, all this fucking shit. So just don't do it, don't. Stand up to the people in your life and tell them that this is not making you happy. And maybe have a plan to switch. Be like, this sucks, but I want to do this, and this is how I would do it, and you wouldn't have to worry about this because this, you know? I find that the more educated you sound in an argument, the better. Not in a snotty way, not in an attitude way, but in a, these are the facts. I am giving them to you, so you don't have to worry about it because I've already worried about it for you. Here you go. That's just my advice as an adult to any young people that feel like switching their career or their major. Here I am, beach ready. Here we go, here we go. Oh gosh, gosh. Hey yo, ready for the beach. I'm gonna actually put my wig on and stuff now, so. Alright, I'm back. If you saw my boobs get bigger, but you didn't. These are natural, obviously. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna try to do this more often because they're easy to make, and they encourage me to actually put makeup on to do cosplay. So yeah, if there's any specific stories you guys would like to hear, not that you would know them, let me know. Otherwise, I have some good ones lined up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh, and make sure to check out my Instagram and my TikTok and everything else, because obviously I post there more often when I have stuff. But yeah, see ya!